Human Piñata. Katy Perry reflects on online abuse following Blue Origin flight and latest tour. Pop singer's tour has been mocked online and she was criticized for taking commercial spaceflight.
Katy Perry is trying to do everything in her power to really keep her career in check, regardless of the fact that she's dealing with a lot of ticket sales, really just, well, not selling for her Lifetime's tour.
Following criticism of her latest tour, new music and her trip to the edge of space on Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin craft, Katy Perry has written an emotional message explaining how the public opprobrium has affected her.
How Katy Perry is not just going against the critics, but also is going against her very own fans that are leaving her, that are abandoning ship, that want nothing to do with her anymore, surprisingly.
Perry wrote the message under an Instagram post by a fan group, who booked a billboard in Times Square to congratulate her on the opening week of her Lifetime's tour. Describing herself as a human piñata,
to show you how once loyal supporters of Katy Perry are even seeing through her phoniness, her fakeness, and everything else that came along with that publicity stunt.
Perry told her supportive fans, "I can continue to remain true to myself, heart open and honest, especially because of our bond. Please know I am okay. I have done a lot."
Katy Perry is not staying quiet anymore. The pop superstar is coming out swinging after facing one of the most intense backlashes of her career. One that not only shook her public image, but also cost her millions of fans.
When the online world tries to make me a human piñata, I take it with grace and send them love, 'cause I know so many people are hurting in so many ways and the internet is very much so a dumping ground for unhinged and unhealed.
She essentially took a roller coaster ride.
Well, it was very profound. I don't know if you've seen Katy Perry talk about it, but she's basically a guru now. Let's not minimize this. Let's celebrate female astronauts.
That's the other thing. There has been female astronauts.
Let's not minimize this.
Lots of other people in the media were embarrassing themselves during this ordeal. Oprah Winfrey actually wept as she watched the all-female team launch into space.
And real astronauts are extremely intelligent scientists who've been tested to the limits of their physical and mental fitness. But this was really not women in space. It was stupid people in space. This was the lowest IQ space crew that has ever been launched from Earth.
They're treating her like she was in Nam. Where are my babies? My babies, like she was almost dead. Here's Katy Perry. Kisses the ground. Right. You were in such danger.
So, Katy Perry went to space, came back in one piece, and now she wants a standing ovation. Again. Yes, we're still talking about that same 11-minute Blue Origin ride, the one that barely scraped the edge of space before dropping back to Earth faster than her recent ticket sales. If you're wondering why this is still a thing, well, buckle up, because somehow, Katy made it worse. Since our last video, where we called out the whole circus for what it was, a glorified theme park ride dressed up as feminist history, Katy's been busy doing damage control. But instead of laying low or owning the ridiculousness, she doubled down. Hard. She's now weaving this space journey into her Lifetime's tour like it's some kind of spiritual awakening. She's calling it transformative, life-changing, empowering. And get this, she says the mission was just as meaningful as what real astronauts experience. I'm not joking. That's the pitch.
The fallout from the so-called Katy Perry spaceflight has spiraled into a full-blown controversy, and now Perry is hitting back hard with a message the industry, her critics, and even her fans weren't expecting.
And because the internet never sleeps, the memes are multiplying. The backlash, even louder. Now she says the criticism is rooted in something deeper. According to her latest rant, the internet is a dumping ground for the unhinged and unhealed, and she's just a human piñata getting beaten from all sides. But here's the thing, when you spend $200,000 to chase clout on a billionaire's rocket and call it breaking barriers, people are going to talk. And no, Katy, it's not because you're a woman, it's because it's tone-deaf, performative, and frankly, kind of hilarious. So in this video, we're diving into the next chapter of Katy Perry's space saga. From PR desperation to fan rebellion, from roar to orbital cringe, we're unpacking how this entire mess went from awkward to downright legendary, for all the wrong reasons. Let's start with what actually happened up there, because despite what Katy Perry's tour visuals might suggest, this wasn't a NASA-level moonwalk moment.
It all started when Perry became publicly associated with a high-profile space flight experience that was marketed as revolutionary and awe-inspiring. Promoted as an iconic venture in partnership with Blue Origin,
Blue Origin's NS-31 mission on April 14, 2025, launched Katy Perry, Gayle King, Lauren Sanchez, and a few other high-profile names about 62 miles up. Sounds impressive until you realize that's literally just scratching the edge of what's technically considered space. And even that's being generous. Total flight time? Just over 10 minutes. That's not a mission. That's an elevator ride with better views and a six-figure price tag. No orbit, no moonwalk, no zero-gravity science. Just a quick launch, a couple of weightless somersaults, some forced smiles for the cameras, and a smooth ride back to Earth where they acted like they'd survived the Martian. And here's the kicker. They're calling this historic. Katy's been parading the all-female crew narrative like it's the Apollo program with acrylic nails. And sure, representation matters, but calling this flight a feminist milestone feels like slapping a world peace sticker on a private jet. You don't become a symbol of progress just because you sang a pop ballad while floating in a capsule for 3 minutes. Even worse, the media ran with it.
I'm not perfect, and I actually have omitted that word from my vocabulary. I'm on a human journey playing the game of life with an audience of many, and sometimes I fall, but I get back up and go on and continue to play the game, and somehow through my battered and bruised adventure I keep looking to the light.
Every tabloid, entertainment show, and Twitter thread painted this like it was some grand evolution for women in space, conveniently skipping over the fact that women have already been on the ISS for decades, doing real research, real missions, and spending real time away from Earth. You know, the astronaut stuff. Meanwhile, Katy comes down from her brief luxury joyride, thanks Blue Origin for inspiring her, and starts teasing that her Lifetime's tour will honor this journey in ways no one expects. And let me tell you, we're expecting holograms, glittery spacesuits, and maybe a heartfelt monologue about how looking at Earth from 62 miles up made her believe in aliens. So no, this wasn't a scientific breakthrough or a historic feminist leap. It was a brand moment with a booster rocket, a suborbital detour designed to make headlines, and maybe sell a few more front row seats to a tour no one was really asking for. But if you thought the flight itself was the end of the drama, oh no, that was just the launch pad.
Perry is currently on her Lifetime's tour, which began in Mexico on April 23rd. Short clips from the tour have been mocked in some quarters online for the choreography and staging.
Let's be honest, if Katy Perry's career was in perfect shape, she wouldn't be strapping herself into a space capsule for a 10-minute flex. This wasn't about reaching new heights, it was about reaching for relevance. Her last album, 143, barely made a dent. Critics called it safe, fans called it forgettable, and streaming platforms practically buried it under Olivia Rodrigo remixes. And that Lifetime's tour she's trying so hard to hype, it was already looking shaky before takeoff. Tickets weren't exactly flying off the shelves, even in key US cities. The buzz wasn't there, the demand wasn't there, so what did Katy do? She did what any brand-savvy pop star with billionaire connections would. She manufactured a headline. And not just any headline, a rocket launch, an empowerment moment, a shiny, billionaire-backed, Bezos-approved spectacle designed to give her a whole new narrative. Because the music sure wasn't doing it.
Perry was also castigated, arguably more than anyone else, for taking part in Blue Origin's flight on April 14th, along with an all-female crew including TV presenter Gayle King and Bezos' fiancée Lauren Sanchez.
But here's where it gets weird. Instead of just riding the media high for a couple of weeks and moving on, Katy made this flight the entire identity of her tour. She started teasing that her concert visuals would honor the space journey, that her performances would be infused with inspiration from the Blue Origin mission. One minute she's wearing platform boots, the next she's talking about staring at the curvature of the Earth and feeling spiritually reborn. And yet, the numbers don't lie. Post-flight, ticket sales didn't spike, they slumped. Sources say some venues are quietly downsizing or rearranging floor plans, not because of demand, but because of a distinct lack of it. Turns out, turning your setlist into a space sermon isn't exactly pulling in the crowds. So, what started as a bold pivot has become a PR boomerang. Instead of inspiring fans, she's confusing them. Instead of rebranding as a cosmic visionary, she's being seen as out of touch, a pop star trying to orbit a culture that's already moved on. But Katy didn't stop there.
A Guardian op-ed described the flight as the utter defeat of American feminism, indulgent and morally hollow. Celebrities including Joe Rogan and Emily Ratajkowski criticized it.
If she couldn't sell empowerment through music, she'd try selling it through identity. And that's when the whole thing got political. This is where things take a hard left turn into eyebrow-raising territory, because Katy didn't just frame her Blue Origin joyride as a bucket list moment. Nope. She wrapped the entire mission in empowerment lingo, like this was a groundbreaking moment for feminism. She called it a leap for womankind, claimed it would inspire future generations of girls to reach for the stars, and proudly celebrated being part of an all-female crew. Now, on the surface, that sounds great, right? Except the whole thing was funded by billionaires, executed by a private company that sells tickets for $250,000 plus per seat, and lasted barely longer than your morning coffee break. This wasn't a glass ceiling being shattered. This was space tourism with a splash of girl boss branding. Critics didn't waste time. Emily Ratajkowski and Olivia Wilde both took to social media, calling the mission gluttonous, tone-deaf, and out of touch with reality. The message was clear.
She essentially took a roller coaster ride.
Well, it was very profound. I don't know if you've seen Katy Perry talk about it, but she's basically a guru now.
This wasn't progress. It was privilege with a PR budget. And honestly, they're not wrong. Because let's ask the real question. Who exactly was inspired by this? Certainly not the millions of women who work 2 jobs and still couldn't dream of affording a trip like this. Certainly not the young girls who want to be astronauts and look up to the women actually working on the ISS, scientists who spend months doing real research, not minutes taking selfies in zero gravity. But Katy kept pushing the narrative. She gave interviews where she said the journey filled a spiritual void and that she felt reborn, like the mission realigned her purpose. She even claimed her experience was on par with what astronauts feel. Yeah, let that one sink in. And when the backlash hit, instead of dialing it back, she doubled down. She said the criticism was because she's a woman and accused the internet of having a problem with female empowerment, which, again, might have held weight if the entire trip hadn't looked like a billionaire's influencer retreat disguised as social progress.
Let's not minimize this. Let's celebrate female astronauts.
That's the other thing. There has been female astronauts.
Let's not minimize this.
But Katy wasn't finished. She took all that cosmic inspiration and started funneling it straight into her performances, where things got even stranger. Here's where it gets genuinely depressing. Not because Katy went to space, but because of how much attention she got for it. Let's put this in perspective. While Katy Perry was floating in Blue Origin's capsule for literally 10 minutes, a team of real astronauts, actual scientists, were on the International Space Station orbiting the Earth at 17,500 miles per hour, conducting months-long research to benefit humanity. You know, medicine, climate science, tech development, little things like that. Guess how much media coverage they got? Close to nothing. Meanwhile, Katy's face was splashed across every outlet from People to CNN. You'd think she discovered alien life the way the headlines read, Katy breaks barriers, a new era for women in space, pop icon rockets into history. It was a full-blown PR explosion.
Every video that I've seen so far of Katy Perry's tour, I can't tell if it looks like a good show or if it looks like a really shit show, and then I can't tell if it looks like it was expensive or if it was a really cheap production.
Nobody seemed interested in asking, wait, is this even news? Because here's the truth. It wasn't. It was spectacle. And the media ate it up because celebrity sells. Doesn't matter if it's substance or fluff. If it has Katy Perry and Jeff Bezos in the same sentence, it's guaranteed clickbait. Especially when you slap the word first ever on it and toss in a few empowerment buzzwords. Meanwhile, real astronauts like Christina Koch, Jessica Meir, and Samantha Cristoforetti, the women who've spent months in actual orbit, got shoved into the background like extras in a movie they were supposed to be starring in. These are women who trained for years, mastered orbital mechanics, and lived in zero gravity without a glam squad. But their stories don't trend. Why? Because they didn't post a selfie in a custom space jumpsuit with a pop soundtrack playing in the background.
She's not a real pop star.
Anybody else see the choreography Katy Perry was doing on her Lifetime store? Like, if the robot had too much rust.
It's not just frustrating, it's embarrassing. And it proves a bigger point. Space has become another playground for the rich and famous. Instead of celebrating scientific achievement, we're celebrating the fact that a celebrity sat down, strapped in, and looked good doing it. But the internet wasn't done. The memes were just warming up, and what came next hit harder than zero gravity ever could. If Katy Perry thought she was going to float into public admiration after her 11-minute cosmic cameo, she miscalculated. Badly. The internet didn't just roll its eyes, it unleashed. Within hours of touchdown, Twitter was flooded with reaction videos, parody edits, and meme templates that practically wrote themselves. Clips of Katy floating mid-flight while humming to herself were re-edited with laugh tracks, TikTok overlays, and even SpongeBob voiceovers. Reddit threads dissected her astronaut moment with surgical sarcasm. One post called it the most expensive Instagram story of all time. And it didn't stop there. Fans, actual longtime fans, started questioning what this whole thing was even about. Was she really trying to inspire people? Or was this just a $250,000 distraction from a faltering tour and a fading chart presence? Her concert promos began feeling less like tour trailers and more like cosmic TED Talks, and audiences weren't buying it. Then came Katy's response. Instead of brushing off the memes or leaning into the joke, she snapped back. In a since viral statement, she described the internet as a dumping ground for the unhinged and unhealed. She said she felt like a human piñata, being smacked from all sides by trolls who just don't understand.
Katy Perry just kicked off her Lifetime's World Tour in Mexico this week, and videos have gone viral all over social media, with people picking apart her performance and being very, very critical.
Here's the thing, nobody forced her into that rocket. Nobody asked her to turn a 10-minute billionaire-sponsored cruise into the emotional core of her tour. But the moment she faced criticism, the story shifted from inspirational to victim narrative. And once that happened, she lost even more ground, because people can spot deflection from a mile away, especially when it's orbiting above Earth in a Blue Origin capsule. Even celebrities started distancing themselves. While a few influencers backed her up, others, like comedian Lily Allen, subtly threw shade, hinting that the space stunt was more about vanity than vision. The backlash had gone beyond fan frustration. It was becoming industry-wide cringe. But Katy wasn't done spinning it. If the public wasn't buying the space as spiritual rebirth angle, maybe they'd buy it as feminist martyrdom, because up next, she turned her sights on the critics and somehow made this all about being a woman. While Katy Perry was catching heat on the ground, another name quietly started taking collateral damage: Jeff Bezos. Let's not forget, this wasn't just Katy's stunt. It was Blue Origin's campaign.
The least popular woman in pop music right now is undoubtedly Katy Perry. She got hit with backlash after an 11-minute trip into space with fellow astronauts. The timing couldn't have been worse, just before her first global tour in 8 years.
A glossy, all-female, headline-grabbing spaceflight was supposed to be the company's big statement. We're not just launching rockets, we're launching culture. But instead of praise, they got a PR migraine. For a brand that's been struggling to stay ahead in the private space race, losing ground to Elon Musk's SpaceX, and even falling behind in government contracts, this mission was meant to be the feel-good story Bezos could parade in front of investors. It had everything: diversity, celebrity, viral potential. It should have been foolproof, except they forgot one thing: authenticity. Once the public realized this historic mission was essentially a publicity stunt wrapped in empowerment hashtags, the credibility hit was instant. Scientists, journalists, and even ex-NASA staff started weighing in. The common message: stop calling this space exploration. It's a sponsored vacation. Even people who had supported Blue Origin in the past began questioning its direction. If this is the future of spaceflight, photo ops over payloads, what exactly are we investing in? And while Bezos didn't say much publicly, you could almost feel the silence. No triumphant speeches, no mission debriefs, just corporate PR releases that sounded like they were written by ChatGPT on low battery.
Before the flight, Katy Perry said that she was going to put the ass in astronaut and was widely mocked for using her 3 minutes of weightlessness in space to promote the set list of the Lifetime's tour. Footage from the tour received various reactions, with people making fun of the choreography and saying that it's poorly rehearsed.
Meanwhile, behind the scenes, insiders are reportedly rattled. One anonymous engineer told a tech blog that the entire Katy Perry flight cheapened the mission architecture and made them feel like they were working for a space-themed cruise line. Ouch. Blue Origin's brand took a hit, not just because of the backlash, but because they doubled down on turning space into a spectacle. They sold it as empowerment, and it blew up in their face. Now they're trying to scrub glitter off a rocket ship that was supposed to prove they were serious. And Katy? She was still mid-tour, still mid-speech, still selling the idea that this ride made her spiritually whole. But audiences weren't buying tickets, and critics weren't buying the narrative. So next up, let's see how this all played out on the ground, as Katy tried turning zero gravity into a full-blown tour gimmick. So what do you do when your $250,000 trip to space gets roasted harder than a Super Bowl halftime show? If you're a Katy Perry, you take the heat, sprinkle glitter on it, and roll it into your next set list. Yep. Katy didn't back away from the backlash. She baked it straight into her tour. Her Lifetime's tour, which was already struggling to gain momentum, suddenly became a live-action tribute to her transformative space journey. We're talking visuals of star fields, neon planets, slow-motion rocket launches, and yes, full monologues about staring at Earth and realizing how small we all are, like it was her Eat, Pray, Love moment, just with boosters and choreography.
Too many songs off a new album, but whatever, it is the Lifetime's tour. And just like Jennifer Lopez is still here, you all can hate on Katy Perry, but she's still gonna be here.
She promised fans a show infused with the spirit of the flight. What they got was more like a motivational seminar on a spaceship. Between songs, Katy reportedly shares personal reflections about how space changed her soul and why this journey of rebirth will be part of her legacy. No word yet on whether Jeff Bezos gets a shout-out, but let's be honest, we wouldn't be surprised. And while her superfans, the Katy Cats, rallied behind her with a flashy Times Square billboard, the rest of the public wasn't buying it. Multiple tour insiders hinted that several shows were quietly downgraded. Smaller venues, empty seats, restructured layouts. The optics weren't great, especially for a tour that was supposed to launch her back into pop royalty. Worse, the backlash hasn't gone away. It's just morphed. Now it's not about the spaceflight itself. It's about how aggressively Katy is trying to turn it into meaning. Like the louder she insists it changed her life, the more it feels like she's convincing herself. And then there's the merch. Oh yes, there's Lifetime's tour merch with rocket ships, stars, and empowerment slogans. Because nothing says spiritual awakening quite like a $65 hoodie and a holographic water bottle. At this point, damage control isn't just a strategy, it's a full-time job. And despite the cosmic branding, this tour is still very much grounded. Because for all the talk of spiritual growth and historic milestones, the numbers keep coming back to Earth. But there's still one final piece to this saga. Because now the question isn't what happened, it's whether Katy Perry can actually recover from it. So, after all the drama, where does Katy Perry go from here? The space stunt didn't land the way she hoped, ticket sales didn't skyrocket, public sympathy, even lower orbit. And while she keeps calling it transformative, most people see it for what it was. A flashy distraction from a career stuck in cruise control. But you've got to hand it to her. Katy owned every second of the backlash. She didn't backtrack, she doubled down. And in an industry that thrives on short attention spans, sometimes stubbornness is its own kind of survival. Still, the big question remains, does this kind of move even work anymore? In 2025, audiences don't want stage-managed inspiration. They want something real. And no, a $250,000 zero-gravity joyride doesn't count. Can Katy make a real comeback? Maybe, but it's going to take more than rocket fuel and metaphors about seeing Earth from above. Because down here, fans just want good music, not moon speeches. So, was this a misfire or marketing genius? Drop your thoughts below and hit subscribe. Because this saga, it's not over yet.